You're listening to the Mind Your Business podcast, episode number 19. Today, we're talking all about numerology. What the heck is it, and how can we use it in our businesses? So, stay tuned. Hi, I'm James Wedmore, and I've built a 7-figure internet business that offers the financial freedom to do what I want, when I want. And I'm the first to say that hard work and hustle are not essential ingredients for your success. So, how do you build a thriving business from the inside out? This is the Mind Your Business podcast, featuring myself and co-host Phoebe Mroczek. So, we're here on the call with Kari Samuels. Now, Kari, I want to see if you remember how we first connected. Do you remember the email you sent me in like 2012?
Actually, it was a Facebook.
It was a Facebook.
Yeah,
Was it a Facebook
I
message?
remember it.
Okay, great, because I tried looking for it in email. I was like, man, it wasn't archived anymore. So what was it, if you can remember, what was it that you reached out to me about? I'm putting you on the spot here.
Well, you, me, and my husband, you actually have the same birth date as my husband. And you were having a conversation with a mutual friend. She was looking at the book, and we were talking about your numbers.
Yeah.
And your numerology based on your birthday. And you have a lot of 5s, I remember, as well. And 5 is the media number in numerology. So I thought that was pretty interesting.
And you took my address that was in a footer of my marketing emails, and that added up to 5 as well.
Yeah, everything adds up to 5 with you, which is hilarious.
And you just said this, like, you are doing what you are meant to be doing.
Yes.
How cool is that?
Everyone
That's
loves
amazing.
to hear that, by the way.
Yeah.
If you ever want to just like compliment anyone and make their day, just you are doing exactly what you're meant to be doing. And I had heard of numerology at that point, but didn't understand it. And I think one of the reasons I'm so excited to have you on the call is because you're the one who really opened it up for me at a much bigger level. And now I get to share you with all of our listeners and probably people that didn't even know what numerology was, or they've heard of it and don't understand it at all. So I'd like to kind of start there. What is numerology, and what does that mean to be able to look at my numbers and say that that's what you're meant to do, or you're a media, you're a 5? Like, I'd love if we could just start right at the foundation of what this means.
Yeah, I'd love to. Well, numerology is actually the sister science to astrology. And I guess it's been under the radar for some reason, even though it's been around for thousands and thousands of years. It predates, well, Pythagoras is Pythagoras, like the Pythagorean theorem.
Oh, yeah, geometry.
Yeah, he's the founder. He had a mystic school back in the day, and he invented the musical scale. I mean, Pythagoras had this mystery school where you so he's the founder of what's called modern numerology. So that's how old it is, because that's a modern numerology.
We didn't learn that in school.
So the Chaldeans have been using it. But basically our whole life is numbers, right? If you look, like, if you want to know your place on a map, it's numbers. You have a number that identifies you at birth. You have numbers that show your location on planet Earth or in space, whatever. Like, it's all defined by numbers. Numbers define your place of home, right? That's numbers. And even every letter of your name adds up to a number if you put it on a numeric kind of scale. So numbers are basically vibrations, the way planets are vibrations. So I'm sure, like, maybe not everyone understands how astrology works either. So maybe I'll start out by talking a little bit about astrology, and then it will, because it's sort of more mainstream, even though it's not taken seriously often.
Yeah.
But these are basically ways that, well, let me put it to you this way. First, I want to talk about what it's not, and then I want to talk about what it is. So basically, there's this misconception that astrology, like planets, make you do things, right? Like, oh, it's Mercury retrograde. That's become a little bit popular. So it's making my computer crash or whatever. So what the misconception is, and why I think people feel it's like a little hocus pocusy, is because that if a planet makes you do something, or if a number makes you do something, that takes away your power, right? But basically, something that we can all relate to is what the moon does, right? So the moon affects the tides. That's a real thing. That's a physical thing, right? And so we, as human beings, are made of up to 75% water. So just as the moon affects the tides, this is why that expression lunatics has to do with the lunar cycles, because people get a little crazy during the full moon, because it's literally pulling up your emotions, which is associated with the element of water. So like that's a physical thing. We can all relate to it. Mm-hmm. And farmers have been using the moon and the planets for planting because as you know, we're connected in this solar system. And so every movement of planets creates a change in how we respond physically and energetically. So planets and just numbers are vibrations, just like planets. They don't make you do anything, but it's actually like it, to me, it's equivalent to knowing the weather. So just as a meteorologist can look at a map, and you know, you have to think of it this way too. We take weather forecasting like it's a real thing. We're not like, they said it's going to snow. That's hocus pocus. How do you know that? You must be a witch.
Yeah. Right.
Like, you know, we're like, oh, okay, that's a real thing. Like you can look at the patterns and the movements. And so if it's going to snow, you're not going to plan an outdoor picnic that day, hopefully.
Says
right?
you.
Have a sense of adventure. That's such a 5-ing. So anyways, so basically every movement of the planet in our solar system, and you know, the ancients have been able to do this and used to work with this, right? For planting and for all kinds of things that have to do with prosperity, right? So harvesting, right? So the movements of planets are actually a little bit predictable. And so when you see how these movements happen and numbers happen, and we're going to talk about the change of the calendar and how that affects us, that's a movement, that's a shift, that shifts the energy. So someone like me who knows astrology and numerology can look at the shifts of these movements of planets and numbers and give you a pretty good idea what the energy weather's like. So like whether it's a time to be productive or it's a time to rest or it's a time to edit or it's a, you know, there's actually, you can actually use it just like farmers have been using these things for planting for millennium. It's actually really helpful in knowing like when to do product launches or when to write or when to edit or when to put something out in the world or when to maybe stay low. And what happens is most entrepreneurs, right, we have these goals and then we get so mad when life gets in the way. We're like, why wasn't I able to do this?
Right.
But someone like, you know, if you actually pay attention to these cycles, pretty much ahead of time, I can say, well, you know, this isn't a good time to try to put something out. So it's actually going to be like, you know, James, you surf. It's going to be like trying to fight a wave. It's not a good idea, right?
Yeah.
So, you know,
or going surfing when the tide is too high or too low. Which,
yeah. So I can say, oh, it's a low tide or a high tide. You don't want to go surfing now, right? So like if you're trying to do like a product launch or something, you can pretty much look. It's this stuff. It's been around for a few thousand years because it works, right? Mm-hmm. So it's very accurate. You can say, you know, this isn't a good time to do that. And I kind of feel like almost everyone now knows about Mercury retrograde.
Oh, it's a big buzzword.
Right. Can we backtrack and just talk a little bit more about that just so I'm clear? And also, sorry, one quick question that you were talking about as far as the forecasting. So if James is a 5 and he has a specific forecast, I could be a different number and have a completely different forecast.
Okay, so let me talk about this.
Okay, perfect.
So, I love going back to the basics. It really is basics. I really wish we learned this in kindergarten. It would be very helpful. Mm-hmm. So basically, we have universal cycles, right? And then we have personal cycles. So just like, you know, someone might be a Libra, right? You know, you're born during a specific sign, which is very general. Then you have your specific birth date at a specific birth time, which is your personal chart, which is your personal. So you have, it's rhythms within rhythms, right? So you have these universal cycles that affect everybody. And that's like the cosmic weather. So like the things that I look at, and I do a monthly forecast where I, you know, look at the monthly weather, and I do daily ones too, where I'm like, this is what your day is going to be like, you know, like this is how to plan with this energy. But you have your own cycles within that. Mm-hmm. But like, something like these universal cycles, like Mercury retrograde, they do affect everyone. So universal cycles, you kind of, whatever your personal cycle is, it's just so much bigger than these universal cycles. You really want to pay attention to those. And then within that, you have your personal number or your personal rhythms and things like that.
Okay, got it.
And I want a clarification question on that because, yes, what you're saying and what most people have at least understood at a basic level with the concept of astrology is when you were born, like that dictates your sign and all that stuff. I don't know how to word this other than like what came first. Like, did something say that like it's because they're born? And again, I'm using very left brain on this, and
you got to talk. You got to make it left brain. The left brain needs to tell the right brain it's okay.
So is it like because like let's say so I'm born in September 1983. Does that mean like everything astrologically was in a certain whatever?
Yes.
And then I'm born into that, which causes me to be on a different pattern or wavelength or
nothing causes you, but there are generational patterns, right? So you see this with like, during the 60s, which was a time of revolution, there was actually this planetary transit that involved Uranus, which is so much fun to say, the planet Uranus, which is the planet of revolution. I mean, it was very active at that time.
Hippies.
So it was a universal cycle. So within that period of radical energy, like if you were born during that time, you could be a staunch conservative and that could be part of your personal cycle, but you're still in this grand scheme of this revolutionary energy, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, it does. But then there's this thing where like even the letters of your name turn into a number. So like where is that? Is that like my mom just intuitively knew what to name me that would
yes.
Really?
So here's the thing, and I don't want to freak people out, but that's my soul's purpose. So there you go. So I'm here to freak people out.
Yeah, just a little, but
I want to wake people up. I mean, that literally is what I'm so passionate about, letting people know it's okay to like utilize these tools. This is a good thing, right? Yeah. So some people have probably heard this concept that we choose our life before we're born. We choose our parents, we choose our life, we choose. So literally part of that process is you're divinely designed to come to life, to incarnate during a certain day period with a certain name, because that's the vibration that carries your spiritual lessons.
Got it. I understood.
Huh.
That
I know you
sense.
did.
Yeah.
I'm just hoping other people. Phoebe, how you feeling?
I know. I'm like, well, I don't know. I mean, okay, I'm with you. I'm not sure
answer the way that I know to answer, but let me. So again, planets don't make you do things, but there's certain, if you have a certain name that carries certain vibrations. Well, I'll tell you how specific these letters are. So and how this goes along with our daily life, because you'll see how in alignment this is. So basically the way that we do numerology letters now, you write 1 through 9 and then go back and you just write 1 through 9. So you put A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, and then after you get to I, you go back to J, and that becomes a 1. So you just go 1 through 9 and put the letters under there on rows until you get like 2.5 rows to get our 26 letters of the alphabet. So for instance, the letters that add up to 4, which is the number of structure and foundation and edifices and things like that. The letters DMV, like the Department of Motor Vehicles. And like the letters that add up to 5, remember I said 5 is the number of change and adventure. And so the letters N, E, and W, like the word new, add up the number 5. The number of mystery and the occult is 7. And so G, P, and Y, like in the word gypsy, add up to 7. I mean, it just goes on like that.
And you start to see patterns.
You start to see patterns and you're like, wait, how is that even? I don't even understand. Like DMV, like how'd that happen? That's such a fluke, right? And so like James, that's a double 1. J and A add up to 1. And 1 is the number of initiation and doing something first and being innovative. I think, again, you're living up to your, and S, J, A, and S are the letters that add to 1. So guess who has that in their name, James?
I do.
You're right.
All 3 letters of the number 1, J, A, and S. James, right? Yeah. So you're the innovator. And you have those 3 1s in your name. And it's not a surprise.
Wow.
Is it?
No, but it's still, it's still hard to
It's hard to grasp, and I understand. I have done thousands of intuitive readings for people, and so I get to see the patterns and like have my mind blown on a daily basis. But I understand that if you haven't seen this thousands and thousands of times, and been like, wait, how is this possible? But there are people that have done like studies with numerology and like really tested these patterns. Juno Jordan is a person who she had like an institution, and they used to test these theories. So
I was just, as you were saying that, I was just writing mine out. I think I might be a 6. Would that make sense?
You mean like totaling the numbers?
Well, so I totaled them and it came to 33.
Oh, did you? You are fast, Phoebe.
I know. You mean you weren't paying attention? You're off.
I can multitask.
On my website. I can look on my little calculator here. Hang on a second.
Okay.
But I know your name begins with the 7, and they're the researchers. You know, they always have to question everything. Yeah, 33, which is a master teacher number.
Wow. Excellent.
So would that be the first step you would have our listeners do, is to find out the number that their letters of their first name add up to? Is that like step one?
You know how people say, what's your sign?
Yes.
Yeah.
It's actually your birth date I would look at first. And, it's kind of like, that's the equivalent to what's your sign in numerology, is adding up your birth date.
And it's, just to be clear on that, that's like the month, the date, and the
4-digit year. Yeah, the 4-digit year.
And you add that up, and if it's like, please help me clarify on this. So it's like, is it like, if I'm 9/24/1983, so I do 9 + 2 + 4 + 1 + 9 + 8 + 3?
Yep.
Okay, and then that's.
And I actually have a calculator on my website for people.
Can actually do that. Okay,
good.
Awesome. And we'll have that link.
I paid a developer. I was I'm like, I want people to know this.
Yeah, but that's gonna give a big number. Like, it's gonna be like 37, and then you would do 3 + 7, which is
because we're 10. Always what's called reducing something to a single digit.
1 through 9.
So I'm a 4.
You're a 4.
Yeah.
I just did that. Maybe a master number 4 could be.
But wait, Phoebe, did you do that with your birthday, or did you do it?
So I just did that with my birthday, and I came out with 40. And then I did with my name, and it came out as 6. So
I love that you're so fast at this. This is shocking.
Quick math.
4 is the number of mathematicians.
Oh my God, that's amazing. So if you want me to say like what each one means, or like
I mean, I have like a million questions I want to ask you on other stuff, but I think if you could quickly go, and I know you told us you have like a numerology guide that we can send our listeners to. Does that include what each of those?
Yeah, it includes what each of those are. So if you want to go on my site and go to the calculator, you can just like, make sure your math is right. You can add it. You can do your full name, your name at birth, and your life path. You can add it right there. And this free guide I have interprets like all of the numbers, and it's so much fun because then you can look at your family and your friends and even people you don't like.
Start judging them.
It just makes a lot of sense.
Those darn 2s. Can't stand those.
I never liked it too.
I'm kidding. So
I love them all.
Let's just do 4. Let's talk about how great the 4s are.
Yes. Well, 4 is the number. See, that the 4 and the 7, they're very because your first letter begins with a 7. They're very analytical. It's very analytical. So I don't know if you're analytical by nature, Phoebe.
Yes.
Yeah, your left brain has to know what's going on.
Exactly.
For you do not pass go. Do not.
That's right.
Collect 200 unless you absolutely. You got to delve in there, make sure everything makes sense. And the 4 is associated with a square, so they have to have their corners squared. They have have all their ducks in a row, and very security oriented. Actually, so it's interesting because 4 is associated with structure and foundations. So the majority of 4 clients that I had. 4 meaning like your life path is 4, were realtors and chiropractors and body workers because it's associated with the structures of your life. So it just manifests that way. But they're also very family oriented. So I don't know if you're family.
Okay, I can get behind that. Yep.
I'll take
so
it.
not really like we're 5, 5 is the number of change, 4 is the number of stability. So it's a little bit, it's not that you don't want to change, but it's more measured steps, you know?
Yep. I can,
And what do you think is the most valuable thing of just knowing this information? Like, do people like go, oh my gosh, I'm doing the wrong thing with my life. I've been doing it all backwards.
You know, it's interesting because I don't really feel people allow themselves to know themselves. And I think, you know, especially for entrepreneurs and, you know, business people, right? So we're kind of conditioned to all be the same. Like, this is what it means for you to have security. And this is what it means. So even entrepreneurs, they're trained to, like, you know, even if you're a multi-passionate entrepreneur, you're kind of trained to like put it all together and stick to that one thing.
Yep.
But that may not be really what's right for you. There's some, like the ones and the five. So if your birthday adds up to 1 or a 5, you have to have variety, or else you're going to like just want to tear your hair out. And if you are even in your own little entrepreneurial world without a sense of variety, it's just not gonna work. And you know, if people try to pigeonhole themselves, even in an entrepreneurial way, right? I do think, you know, we do have ideas about what that's supposed to look and be like, right? Yeah. But if you actually truly know what your gifts are, like the 3s, people with 3s have to use their voice.
And what does that mean?
Some way.
Like does that mean creative. They could do a podcast?
They have
or
to be creative in some way.
Okay.
Or else they'll be depressed. If they're not, you know, so if you're an entrepreneur and you have the 3 energy and you're not doing something where you're writing or speaking or taking time to be creative in some way, even if that means you cook when you're not working or whatever, then, you know, the opposite of expression is depression. And so those 3 energies will get very maybe scattered or depressed or insecure. Where someone like you know, you have a lot of the 1s. So people with the 1s in there, as a 1 life path or born on a 1 day, like what happens is your whole purpose is to be an innovator. And because you're doing something new, it's scary. That's why you're like, this is a difficult email for me to send out. Yes. And it's like, okay, well, of course, because you're doing something new, right? And innovative, and no one's doing it ahead of you. So there can be a lot of, you know, one of life lessons is learning how to have the confidence to be something different. And I feel like if people really know that, like, okay, I'm a 1 and I'm not supposed to see like something out there that is already showing me what I'm supposed to do. If my whole purpose is to do something new, then it kind of gives you the courage to do that. And the more you know these things about yourself, the more it helps direct your intentions and give you courage to be yourself.
I love that, because we actually did an episode talking about how nervous I was about releasing this podcast, but how successful it's been. We're about to hit 20,000 downloads in like 8 days of launching. And so I really just kind of created this inquiry into why was there all this fear and trepidation about sharing this when nothing went wrong, you know? And it's really like, what is that? I can totally see like stepping into knowing that that's your path and that you're on the right track, like kind of dissipates that fear a little bit.
Absolutely. The more you know what you're, you know, like if you really know that you're meant to be creative, or you're meant to be an innovator, or you're meant to do something different, or you're meant to have a certain experience, it does give you permission in a way. It does help you with the confidence, because it's just such an insecure feeling when you're putting yourself out there. If you're like, if you hear that you were born to do this, like you said, it really lights you up, I feel, because every entrepreneur is doing something different in their way. So if you know like what your way is in a way that expresses your purpose, that is so helpful.
Mm-hmm. Do you find ever the opposite is true? In that, you know, I'm hearing all this stuff, and on one hand, I'm like, oh, I want to be that. You know, I want to be a 1. I don't like.
I want to be a 1.
But I feel like,
well, I know it's so funny. The 4s never like being. They're like, I don't relate to this at all, or whatever. When he talks about stability and structure and stuff like that, people don't like to hear that. And I work with a lot of spiritual people and sensitive types. And 8 is the number of like the manager and the money maker and prosperity. And they're like, this doesn't make sense to me at all. You know, like it depends on who you're talking to, right?
Right.
But there is. most people have some familiarity with what their sun sign is in astrology, right? Like, and you can say this doesn't apply, but usually you'll find things that make a lot of sense, right? Especially if you've ever dated anyone and then you know their sign.
Mm-hmm.
You're like, that makes sense.
Yeah, that does make sense. Yeah.
That does make sense. If you know that, let's say you are like not a social person and you're dating a Gemini who, or, they're part of their thing is they're social. They want to know everything about everybody, you have to know that about them. So you're like, oh, I will set you free to just socialize and I'll wait for you at home or whatever. You know what I mean?
I love that. I'm a Gemini. And so when you said that, I was like, that's interesting. I do like to know everything about everybody.
You're a learning factory, aren't you? Oh, the thing about 4s is they do love to teach. Again, it's like so with that 4 and that 7 combination, you want to learn, research, and then share your information. Because the one thing about 4s is they want to leave something behind. They want to leave a legacy behind. They want to leave some kind of foundation. Mm-hmm. So usually that's teaching or children or whatever. But it's all about leaving something that other people can benefit from. So you have a lot of that learning, teaching energy.
I like it. Awesome. Well, so my next question is just about, when you're talking about your numbers, so you have your birth date number and then your first name. Do you have like a last name, a middle name? How many numbers are there?
There's a bunch. So I have a guide that really walks you through your house number as well as your birth date and, things like that, just so you know numbers in general. So like you can even look at, if you see repeated numbers, those are all like kind of messages for you. So if you understand what numbers in general are, that's a good framework. I wouldn't recommend going and being like, the first letter of my name is this, and then my whole name adds up to that, because it's like a whole chart. It's kind of like trying to read a whole birth chart. It can confuse you. So I like to start with the basics. So it's like, oh, this number is about that. And I've always loved the number 4. I never knew why. Or I've always loved this number. I never knew why. Or I always see this number. And this is maybe like a message for me. And this is what this is trying to tell me. So just learning that. And what happens is the more you attune to numbers, the more you do start seeing them as messages.
Totally. I have that. It's really funny. Now, all of a sudden you're saying that. And I was like, the number that I've seen for the last year all the time is 44. It's always 244, 144. And then my house number is 2101, which adds up to 4.
Yeah, I love that you're adding it. Yeah, because your house number is a thing too.
Oh, right.
I mean, it's, I talk about that in my free book as well. It's like what your house number is. And yeah, it's a thing. I mean, so you start to attune to it. And so you're like, oh, why do I keep getting these, this number all the time? Right? Yeah. So the more you start to pay attention to it, the more you'll see it, the more you'll understand it, and the more you can learn about yourself just from seeing what numbers you see a lot all the time, or what comes up for you, or what numbers you're drawn to, or I would just focus even on the birthday number. And I could go through real quick. So we talked about the 1, right?
Say the 1 again, the innovator.
The innovator, because it's the first of something. 1 is the first of something. So they always want to be the best. Not necessarily better than everyone else, just their best, right? So they can be very competitive with themselves, like always pushing themselves forward. So, but always here to like do something first, right? Always ideas. Now, the key is to implement those ideas. And the 1s tend to have maybe some insecurities about implementing them because it's new. The 2s are like, they're the lovers because they always want to do everything in pairs, right? So they're more sensitive. So they're always like, what do you think? How do you feel about that? What do you want to do? So they're very sensitive to how other people think and feel as well, which makes them they're good mediators. They're good with balance and harmony and intuition, but they tend to kind of get torn between 2 things, because if it's like, what do you do? Then what do I do? So the path of the 2 is really about learning how to listen to your intuition and not be so other people focused, but you're always really going to be of support to people in some way. And then the 3, as we talked about, is expression and joy and creativity and learning to express from the heart. And, really the ultimate of the 3 is to learn how to use their words to uplift and inspire people. And the 4s, as we mentioned, they want to leave a legacy, but they're very, structure oriented. They're good organizers. They're good at systems. They're good at foundations and leaving foundations. Oprah is a 4. You'd be happy to know.
Excellent.
and that's why she's, she's so stable. She's like, she's the earth mother, right? And she just wants to leave these schools and foundations. She's really leaving that legacy, right? So 5 is the number of like N-E and W. We talked about that adds up to 5. So 5 is actually, if you're a 5 life path, which means that your birth date adds up to 5, that you're someone that's going to want to change careers and change it up and have a multiplicity of things that you're going to do. And the number one thing that's important to you for both 1s, 5, and 7 in general, but especially for 5, is that you're always changing and you always have the freedom to do your own thing. You never want your own boss and you always want to travel. So it's probably a great number for an entrepreneur.
Yeah, probably a lot of entrepreneurs.
Yeah. Actually, there's combinations I see. Like 4 is actually a good number for an entrepreneur because again, you're the boss because you're the one that 8 is the ultimate entrepreneur number because they're all about like managing big things and like making money, making big decisions. So like I would never recommend an 8 entrepreneur trying to do everything themselves. They have to like manage a team. Like, so if you're an 8 in any way, like go hire a team right this second. But, the 1s may want to try to do everything themselves because they're like, and the 6s as well. So if you're a 6, the 1s and the 6s are like the 1, 4, and 6 they're ultra responsible energies. So the 6 energy is again very couple oriented and very love oriented, but they tend to feel like they're responsible for other people. And the 6s have trouble giving up responsibility sometimes because they're like, I'm the only one that can do it best. Nobody can do it as good as me. So I'm going to take it on for me and everybody else. They do that with their family, their team members. So if you're a 6 out there, I'm just encouraging you to let people support you every now and then. 7, again, they love research. 7s need privacy. Like they cannot be surrounded by other people all the time and still feel like they can concentrate. They need to like really process things, dig into things, really want to get to the bottom of things. Great researchers, great at writing, and great at like just really innovative. The 7 can be really innovative, but you really need that time to process your own intuition or else you're going to get scrambled. And the 8, as I mentioned, big managers, big money, all about big and growing. And, you're the ones that can spin like 10 plates at once. But as long as you're, managing how other people are spinning their plates too, I think you'll be happy. It's very money oriented, because 8 is really ultimately a philanthropist. So they're meant to. Paul Newman was an 8. Do you know he made a lot of money and he had a lot of money and status and power, and he did that for charity a lot. He was a great example of an 8. And 9 is the number of the teacher, the counselor. I'm actually a 9 life path. James, I think you're a 9 life path, aren't you?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So 9s have to teach. They're what's considered the old soul, the wise soul. Mahatma Gandhi was a 9. They want to teach by example, and they want to teach through integrity, and they want to teach through what they've learned from their own intuition and their own journey.
9s are great.
We love 9s, right?
I love those 9s.
I'm just rolling my eyes over here. James is like glowing.
So my fiance is also a 9.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing.
And she was, when we first started dating, she was a teacher.
Well, there you go. Match made in heaven.
I don't think matches are made in heaven. Yeah. So that's great. So I love it. That makes me so happy. Well, it makes me like her more, right? Because I'm a 9.
But I have always felt the like pull of teaching, where like I used to find myself like having to shut up because I'd be talking to friends and I just wanted to teach them something.
Just want to teach. And people are drawn to you to teach them things. Like people are always asking 9s advice. Like, what do you think? Or how do you feel about this? Or what would you say? Or like, and it just kind of can't get away from it. Yes. So, and there's different ways we teach them. You don't have to be like a teacher, but always like imparting your wisdom somehow. And again, 9s actually need a lot of alone time, don't we, James?
Like you wouldn't believe.
Also, because you're processing a lot of intuition.
And we're learning. We're like.
That requires a lot of you time, So the 7s, the 2s, and the 9s tend to require the most privacy.
So, okay, this is awesome, and I know you have more information on this in your free numerology guide. We're going to have that link in the show notes, but I want to, like, we've created this great foundation for what this is, and hopefully people have kept an open mind to it who have never heard of this, didn't, are like calling BS on this, because I there's a reason I'm having you on this call. I've known you for years, and this stuff is just so fascinating. You start to see the the correlations and the signs. But you yourself are a business owner. And, and you run a great, successful business. So the next question is, what I want to do with the remainder of this call is take this information that you've thrown at us and say, where are some practical uses, especially for business? So how are you personally using this knowledge and information in your business?
Well, there's something we didn't talk about yet. So again, I like knowing who you are and what you're good at is part of it too. That's your personal stuff. And then we talk about the universal cycles. So I feel that this is very valuable for timing. Now, especially astrology, numerology and astrology combined are very, very, very helpful for timing, you know? So like, for instance, Mercury retrogrades are not the best time to launch products.
So every time I have I got to stop you there because I'll have coaching clients, I'll have friends where they're like, oh my gosh, we're in the middle of the launch and my Facebook ad stopped working.
Yep.
I'm like, why didn't you consult your local astrologer here?
Yeah, come on. And I'll joke with them like, oh, Mercury's in retrograde. And they're like, that's the third person who's told me that. What the heck is Mercury retrograde? So let's start there. What is it?
Okay. So remember we talked about the moon affecting the tides and your emotion. And like I said, that's how we got the word lunatic, because during the full moon, your emotions are blown up. Like the moon is all big and bright. And so, but actually the moon, I want to talk about the moon because this is how farmers have been planting since the dawn of time. Waxing moons are good for growing. Waning moons are good for letting go. Okay. If you're like launching something, I like to do things during a waxing moon. I actually have a moon phase calculator on my website too, because these things are important. So you want to look at, you want things to grow as the moon's light is growing. Now, again, you go look in the Farmer's Almanac. Like this stuff is for real. Like this is stuff. It actually affects how plants grow as well because the way the moon pulls on things, right? Yeah. So you want to do, growing during a waxing moon. Waning moons are so good for like getting rid of this person. I'm like getting rid of this project. It's really good for those kinds of cycles. Now, Mercury retrograde, let's talk about this because Mercury retrograde, it doesn't happen every day. It's literally clockwork. It's every 88 days for 21 days at a time. It's clockwork. Wow. It's literally like, that's what I'm saying. You can like, I literally map these things out when I'm planning my editorial calendar. So just getting in touch with the Mercury, actually that is something I do have, like I have a whole thing about manifesting during Mercury retrograde because it can actually be an incredibly productive time. Because what Mercury is, it's the planet that's the fastest planet in our zodiac. So it's quick moving. And Mercury's Quicksilver, it's associated with communication, okay? So how you think as well as how you speak, but every tool that you use for getting from one place to another, because it's really the way of transportation and communication, right? So your computers, your cars, your appliances that run on electricity even, like these are all affected. So how you think, what happens is we during the day, we have all these goals and intentions, right? We're like, this is what I'm going to accomplish this year. And like I was joking, life gets in the way, right? So you're like, this is what I'm going to do. So during the day, your conscious mind is picking up a small portion of the information that's coming to you, right? This is scientifically proven, right? Mm-hmm. There's all this other intuitive information that you're picking up that you're not recognizing because you're too busy going forward, moving forward, focusing on your goals. So Mercury retrograde is what that is. It's the vernacular is about like it's when Mercury moves backwards, but really what it is from the Earth's perspective. It's kind of like when two cars cross each other at the same time, like one's moving fast, whatever. It looks like one is going backwards.
Okay.
Do you know what I mean? So from the Earth's perspective, it looks like Mercury's going backwards. What that time is a time. So retrograde is good for all the RE words like revising, renewing, repairing, revisiting, reflecting. So if you're trying to be like, let's say you're writing a book or a blog or a course or something, and you're trying to move forward with that during this time when the whole universe is, again, it's like swimming against the tide. Why are you doing that? So the whole universe is trying to pull you back to like revise, to go over, review, edit, fix things. Like, so what happens during Mercury retrograde when things break is people are still trying to move 24/7 full speed ahead when all the energies are trying to pull you back to say, look, you need to go back and fix something because you're not building it on a solid foundation here. You want to go back and get things you missed. You're going to find things and fixing things. Like nothing breaks just because out of the blue. It was broken to begin with. And during the Mercury retrograde, it tends to reveal themselves more because it creates more tension if you're moving forward and something wants to pull you back and look at something again.
Wow.
Does that make any sense?
It makes complete sense to me. It still becomes almost hard to believe. You know, it's like...
Until you see everything break.
Right. Yeah.
This is what I'm saying. Once you start to see it happen in real life, you do believe it because you're like, I don't want to fight this anymore. Well, you wouldn't believe the moon can pull the tides like that if you didn't really see it, right?
If we didn't read it in a textbook in a science class.
You're like, that really is happening. Yeah. This is not like a thing. It really is happening.
Yeah.
You know? And like, I would believe that some people would think actual weather forecasting is hocus pocus if they didn't actually see it.
I think just to kind of check in with while you're talking, and I'm trying to like really grasp this, and this is all this is actually really new to me, and so listening to it is almost like unbelievable. Like I can't really wrap my brain around the whole thing. But my question is, so for those 21 days, then you're just stuck. Like,
no, you're not stuck.
Okay.
It's very, very, very productive. This is why I said I have this whole thing on my site called Manifesting with Mercury Retrograde. If you're like, okay, so for these 21 days, actually we have 4 in 2016. We actually started this whole year with Mercury Retrograde. You could feel it. Yeah. And we started in a 9 year, which is all about reflecting. So this whole year is kind of a revision year. Really, if you put it on your editorial calendar, okay, so this is when we're going to review the processes. This is when I'm going to update the things on my website that I've been wanting to get, the fonts and things that I've been wanting to change forever. This is when I'm going to go through and make sure all my systems are working. This is when I'm going to go back and really look at my calendar and see all projects that aren't really benefiting me. It's your time. It's so productive. This is why I personally love Mercury retrograde, because I know what to do with it.
Right.
I'm like, oh, thank God. I get to go back and edit this work, this piece that I've been working on, or I fixed a bunch of stuff on my website that's been, bothering me. You know what I'm saying? Because it's a great time for that. Totally. It's incredibly productive. But I would not try to launch a product during that time because it's not going to be productive. You're going to spend your whole time fixing things.
Got it.
But I know what to do with it. So I'm like, this is great. I'm not trying to plan that picnic during the blizzard. So I'm good. I'm tucked at home with my hot chocolate.
Right.
You know what I mean?
So this is the opposite of like creation mode. I feel like we're in a phase,
it is the opposite of creation mode. And everything in nature has cycles. Okay. Everything in nature.
Because we're in a phase right now where Phoebe and I were not, we have recorded like 6 podcast episodes now, and it's easiest, most effortless process, and we're creating new videos, writing new content, and that's a very different energy than where I'm like planning, refining, and all that.
Which was us at the beginning of the year, So when you're saying that, like as you were
fifth for 3 weeks, bam, you were planning, revising, and then Mercury went direct. You're like, let's do this. Yeah, because you were in tune with it, even if you didn't have it on your editorial calendar.
So so avoid launches, promotions, anything.
Oh my god!
Even like what if you're like creating a course? Like I know a lot of our students are like creating a coaching program. Like, would you even avoid like creating during that time internally?
No, it is internal. I would create anything that's internal. It's about going inside. It's not a forward moving get from point A to point B. Now, for instance, there's some like I'm sure so many of us are familiar with B School, right? Yeah. Mm-hmm. Now, Marie almost always like last year she had like a flawless launch practically, and it was all during Mercury retrograde. But it wasn't her first time launching.
Right. It's a refined process.
So if you've already done this course, you can go ahead and do it during Mercury retrograde. Do you get it? What I'm saying? Because you're not initiating it.
Got it. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
So it was flawless for her because she'd done this so many times. I was like, oh, this will be interesting. I want to watch this. But it worked really well but during it, she changed a lot of how she wanted to, deal with affiliates and you know what I'm saying? Because she refined the process a lot during that.
So the work for her was
refining
and reflecting.
Yes.
Even though someone on the outside, maybe seen her for the first time, sees something new.
But if she launched during that Mercury retrograde, it would have been very different. It was her first time.
Yeah.
But because she's done it before, she used it to refine the process.
Okay.
Do you get it?
Yep.
Yeah, totally.
But if you're initiating, this is you're launching your website, or you're launching a name, or you're launching a product, or you're launching a course.
Podcast.
Yeah.
A podcast, right?
Yeah.
But if you're like, okay, like let's go back and finish the logo, and let's go back and, anything where you're going back to.
Right.
Refining. Refining is one of those RE words.
Mm-hmm.
Refining, revisiting, revisioning, reflecting. So it's an internal process. So you want to keep those Mercury retrogrades as an internal process.
And how would we find when Mercury is in retrograde?
Well, this thing first of all, you can just look it up.
Okay.
like I would just Google it.
It's not kept a secret.
Yeah, but I have that whole, it's like I have something called Manifesting with Mercury Retrograde, which has like the dates coming up through 2020 and like what to do when and what each one, what each one's about kind of thing. So you can look it up. I would mark it on your calendar, like look it up and put it on your calendar.
Got it.
Like without hesitation. If you're going to do one thing, that would be it, because it's become a meme, right? Like, astrologers weren't the one that were like, you should know this. It was like, what's going on? And we're like, oh, well, just by the way, we knew this. I'm fine. My mac's backed up.
If Mercury in retrograde is the worst time to be putting something out there new for the first time,
I wouldn't say the worst. I don't want to scare people.
Okay, it's not.
I don't want to scare
ideal.
It's not ideal. I don't like to say, nothing's the worst, right? Like,
However, I really have had people had some like crazy meltdowns on a launch.
It's hard though. I mean, you're swimming against the tide. You can survive it, but you're going to be tired afterwards, right?
Yes. Okay. So what's on the other side of that then? Is there an ideal, most ideal, or optimal time?
Yes.
Okay. I'm glad I asked.
Excellent. That makes me happy.
New moons are the greatest time to initiate something, because it's a new beginning and the light is growing. Full moons are culminations, so they also can be very good if you've been working on something, for a while. It's like up right until the full moon. Those are great times for launching. Great times.
And how do we find that information? We just type in what are the dates
Again,
for the new
I
moon?
have a million things on my website too, because I have a moon phase calendar. So you can actually find your moon phase at birth, which actually tells you a little bit about what your life purpose is as well. But we don't want to blow Phoebe's head off here.
Yeah, exactly. Oh gosh.
I don't
Here we go.
101 stuff.
Yeah.
Maybe on your 60th show. Maybe not right now.
Okay. One step at a time. We'll get there.
But what is a new moon? Is that that's where it's it looks like a fingernail clipping? It's just literally.
It's just all dark. So the thing is, because it's dark, it's pure potential, and then the light is growing. So as the moon's light grows, everything's coming to light.
So if I'm doing a new promotion, I could announce it on a time like that.
Yeah, and because you have the 1s and 5s and 7s, and maybe not the 7s, but the 1 and 5s, I like that for things that are, they add up to a 1 and a 5, or a 5 kind of thing, or if they're on a day that adds up to 1, like a 1, 9, or 19, or 10 days add up to 1s, or a day that has to do with, so if it's January 1st or January 10th or January 19th, those are 1 days, right? Mm. So those 1s are good numbers for initiating. And again, 5, you want to reach a lot of people. So if it's on a 5-day or 23-day or a 14-day, because 1 + 4 is 5 and 2 + 3 is 5, right? So those are good too.
Okay.
Again, you can, someone like me goes through a million permutations, right? To find the ideal time. When I was still taking clients, that's something that, and like I said, I love planning wedding dates, James. You can still call me.
May 30th. Okay, May 30th is mine. How'd we do?
Oh my gosh, that's such a great.
You're just saying that.
No,
you didn't want to say,
that.
What are you
Did
doing?
You already plan it? It's perfect because 3 is the number of emotional expression, and in May 30th, so it's a Gemini. The whole thing is a Gemini. Your wedding is the event actually has a birth of its own, and so it will be very social and fun, and always learning new things and travel. So it's perfect for you.
Okay.
You don't have to reschedule the wedding.
Yeah.
I know. You don't have to reschedule. It's so perfect.
Chelsea, I have some bad news for you.
I personally love the number 30. And the 0 actually adds protection and completion and fullness. And because it's a perfect circle, everything coming full circle. And because you're both 9 life paths, it's part of the, if you multiply 3 times 3, it's 9.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So that's
you just did it intuitively.
Yeah, I did. Yes, it was all me. No, it was Chelsea.
And it adds up to 8, which is the number of power and money and prosperity, which you're both entrepreneurs, so it's perfect. You got it all there.
You're going to get a lot of money on your wedding.
Yep.
That's exciting.
We don't want gifts.
You're a power couple, so that's good.
Okay, that's amazing. So what else? Is there anything else I'd love to see that you do or that you recommend business owners or entrepreneurs do using this information to benefit in business?
Oh my gosh. I'm going to explode. I mean, I want everyone to use this every day.
Yeah.
So it's like, I can't emphasize this enough. I feel like it's so sad when people, they're fighting the tide and they're like, why did I fail at this? I'm like, you're literally going against the weather, the universal energies. You don't need to put yourself, I just encourage you to really pay attention to it's not woo-woo. It's literally been used for thousands and thousands of years for prosperity and harvesting and planting. So I hope that, you feel, if you're listening, that you feel comfortable saying, you know what, I am going to pay attention to this. And I do monthly forecasts and daily forecasts that are free. So I love sharing that information.
Those are great because I'm on your email list, and so I always get your monthly forecast, and it's like it literally is like the weather for your life.
It is the weather
really
forecast.
Cool. Like, here's what we can expect here, and
people, and people always say, "Did you make this specifically for me?" And I always say, "Yes," because it is affecting you very personally. And it's comforting to know we're all going through the same things at once. But it's so important to have a heads up on this stuff. So important.
So how detailed can you get? So as a business owner, we have so many different dates and things that we're doing. So as far as if you're going into a launch, how detailed can you get? I mean, is it just like a rabbit hole?
Very detailed. Yeah. I have something on my site called Manifesting with the Moon, or maybe called now Moon Signs and Phases or whatever, which is like, it literally teaches you how to do this. And I think that's about as detailed as you would need to get. But I feel like even just general is going to help so much. Like just not launching during a Mercury retrograde or things like that. Right. And looking at the monthly forecast. I mean, you can get very detailed. But again, like James, you intuitively chose your wedding date. Like you just knew. It just felt right. And I feel like, people can get so detailed that they make it complicated, right? So I don't want that to happen.
I got that.
So my suggestion is if this is new to you, keep it general. It's okay. You don't need to do the whole manifesting with the moon situation. You don't need to study that with me. You could just say, okay, I'm going to get a handle on the Mercury retrogrades, general forecast. I'm going to actually pay attention to this and not think it's like ridiculous wizardry. Although wizardry is kind of fun.
It is.
I'm going to this is a science. This is a science that's been used for thousands and thousands. It's kind of like when medical doctors think that acupuncture is not valid. It's it's been working for a very long time. There's a reason that it hasn't gone away.
So this is so awesome, and thank you. I know we're going really long on time, so I really appreciate you.
That's me.
No, I mean it's all of us here. But I know you talked about. I kind of want to wrap up with one or two last questions that maybe start to expand beyond numerology, because you mentioned before the call when we were kind of discussing prep that there's a lot of other cool things that you do to help in your business that you advise others to do. Can you kind of speak to that? You started talking about intention and intuition and you're visualizing. I don't want to open up a whole can of worms.
Oh, you are, James.
What
are you doing?
I know. It's like, hey, we're going to do another hour. Welcome to round 2.
I guess I'm just inviting myself back.
But it was so cool that I'm like, I can't have her leave before sharing some of these things.
Well, I want to encourage you I can sum it up in this way. So basically, instead of looking at your business and your life as a series of goals, and a series of intention, which is pretty much just in your mind, I want to encourage you to look at your life as energy. So basically what we're talking about is if you're in the flow of universal energy and if you're not in the flow of universal energy, if you're in the flow of your own personal rhythms and your life purpose and what really truly lights you up inside, or you're not. And ultimately, if you change the focus from your mind to what you think you want and what you think you want when, and just keep going for it relentlessly, to really truly go into the energy of what you're doing and what lights you up. And so like, to me, everything is energy, right? And that's how I look at everything. So every email I send, instead of being like, oh, is this perfect? Are they going to like this? Or does this have all the sales things? I literally get into the energy of how I want myself and the people receiving it to feel.
Do I want them back up a tiny bit? What does that mean? You're getting into the energy. So
basically, instead of being like, how does this look? Or what is this? Or what is it? I start to trip myself up in my head. Mm-hmm. Ultimately, I say, how do I want other people to feel during this? So I want them to feel a sense of upliftingness, upliftment, whatever that word is. I don't even know, but because I'm feeling it, I'm not even putting it into words. That's how much I'm feeling it. But, I want them to feel uplifted. I want them to feel inspired. I want them to feel happy. So I literally I change my channel, so to speak. So I'm like, am I feeling happy when I'm writing this? Because if I'm feeling stressed when I'm writing this, I don't want to do this.
Right.
I want to feel good because I want other people to feel good when they're receiving it. So I'm going to get myself into a feel good place. So I kind of get an image of how I want myself to feel. And I put myself on that channel. I'm like, I want to feel exuberant because I'm so excited to share this news with people. And then I literally visualize them feeling good. And I actually I see light when I do that. So I actually send light to all these people. So I imagine everyone who's getting it, feeling like opening it up and feeling amazing and feeling like, oh my God, I feel so understood and I feel comforted and I feel happy now and I believe in myself. And that's what I put into my everything I do.
Yeah.
And I truly feel people respond to energy more than information.
I love that. I think either like a simple analogy or another example of that is when people talk about like food that was made with love.
Yeah.
It tastes so much better than just following some recipe in the back
It really,
kitchen.
really does because, and ultimately that's why you do your business. You want to feel a certain way. And so if you want to feel a certain way from being an entrepreneur, if you want to feel that you have a sense of freedom and fun and joy, you don't want to go through your processes feeling like that. You actually want to feel that in everything you do because you're cultivating the energy of your future with every action you're doing now. So if you want that from your business, you want to figure out a way to make all of your processes like that. Mm-hmm. So I hope that makes sense.
I love that. That's so nice.
And I want to say, like, I do that as much as I can, and I can see the difference.
That's why you're successful, and that's why people enjoy receiving your information because you're sending it with joy and humor and love. And ultimately, that's when I'm doing a video, like I'm like, okay, all the information's there, but I'm going to let it go, and I want to get into the feeling of joy and exuberance because that's how I want people to feel, and they do.
Like even when we're recording these episodes, I visualize and imagine what our listeners are experiencing.
Yes.
And there are times when I can visualize them going, what the heck is he talking about? But like they're still staying with it. They're nodding their heads a little.
So basically, numbers, planets, it's all about energy. This is all about being in the flow of a harmonious, happy energy. So if you want to even forget the numbers and forget about the astrology, which I hope you don't, because I hope you actually do this because it's awesome. But if it's too much for you or doesn't resonate for you, if you can remember one thing, am I in tune with my own energy? If I don't feel like being productive now, whether Mercury is in retrograde or not, if I'm like fighting myself doing this, how do I get in the feeling of joy and fun and ease? Maybe I should redirect my energy to do something that feels more easy and in the flow for me now, if that's how I want my business to be. And that's how I want people to feel when they experience this. If you can boil it down to that, whether it's Mercury retrograde or not, that's fine.
I love this. And Kari, thank you so much for coming on here, spending the time and having the patience to take us back to the beginning of numerology. It must be like
fun.
It must feel like trying to teach somebody how to walk or something. You've been doing it for so long, and we're like, wait, what?
Teach them how to roller skate.
Yeah, there we go.
Thank you.
There we go.
More fun than that. I mean, it's not. You're not that remedial. It's more like roller skating. Yeah. So and that's what couldn't be fun about that.
Yeah, I really appreciate it, and I think that obviously I'm not as familiar. So a lot of the things that you said, I'm going to go back and listen to this episode because I'm sure I was taking notes, and I'm sure that you shared things that maybe I didn't pick up on the first time. And so I want to go back. And even when I was like writing my numbers, as much as I was paying attention, I'm sure I missed a couple things, but I do really appreciate you going back to the beginning for me and for all the other people that are listening that are kind of in my shoes that aren't 100% sure what you're talking about.
Yeah. So
I'm so used to that.
Right, I'm sure.
It's great. It's so great to go back to that.
So Kari shared a bunch of resources with you guys here on the call, one of which was her numerology guide, where you can find out what number you are and learn a little bit more about your life's path, pretty much. Is that
your life path number? It's kind of like your sun sign. You know, I'm a 5 Virgo or whatever it is. Right. It's knowing what your birth date is in number language.
And she also has a monthly and daily astrology forecast.
Yeah, I do the daily ones on my Facebook page and the monthly ones
on YouTube,
on my Facebook page and through my newsletter.
Yeah, and I highly recommend subscribing. It's just, even if, again, you're at that newbie level for all this information, to have that, to be mindful of that even in the background and spend 30 seconds once a month to have it as a part of your awareness has been beneficial to me. So that's been awesome. So again, Kari, thank you so much for being on the call. I want to thank our listeners for being open-minded to this if this was brand new. And that's it. We'll see you in the next episode. Are you frustrated that no matter how hard you hustle, no matter how much you get done in a day, you still feel like you have little results to show for it? Do you feel like you're doing everything right, but there's still something missing? Well, what if there was an easier way? What if your business could be fun, effortless, and profitable? Phoebe and I have put together a free audio MP3 for you, compiling the 77 business affirmations for creating success from the inside out. And we want to give it to you absolutely free. This is your chance to rewire your brain for bigger results in your life and your business. To get instant access absolutely free, simply visit 77affirmations.com. That's the number 77affirmations.com.